This video will provide an overview of 2FA1's risk-based authentication. Many of us have logged on to bank sites in recent years where you first have to put in your username and password. And if you're logging on from another computer for the first time, or if there's some type of risk associated with that logon, your bank may prompt you to answer a previously configured question. In this case, I'm going to log on to Frost Bank, where they enable risk-based authentication. I put in my username and password, and I've never logged on to this system before. And prior to beginning access to my financial information, Frost Bank is going to require me to answer a question that I had previously configured. Very similar with 2FA1 risk-based authentication, a user's security risk is determined at the point in time that they're logging on. And if there's a security risk associated with that logon, then the user's required to answer some questions or log on with another form of authentication. In this case, I'm going to log on with username and password. Risk-based authentication is enabled on this system. Not unlike a website, but we're doing this with the Windows logon environment, so we can determine risk-based authentication within Windows logon. 2FA1's risk-based authentication is started when a user enrolls in the 2FA1 system, where user profiling and user token information is assigned to that user, and as the user logs on to various systems, user profile information is built to determine that level of risk associated with future logon. In this case, I've logged on with my username and password onto a machine that I haven't logged on to, or there was some risk associated with that logon event. In this case, my primary form of authentication is a RFID card, so the system is going to require me to log on with advanced authentication using an RFID card. In this case, unfortunately, I'm at a system that does not have an RFID reader. So I can look at some other options, and I'm provided with other options that I'm enrolled in with the 2FA1 system. In this case, I have some emergency access capabilities. When I first enrolled in 2FA1, I was challenged to create some challenge and response questions. In this case, high security challenge and response questions. By default, the 2FA system requires the user to answer 3. You saw when I was logging on to the Frost Bank site, I was only challenged with 1. And when I first enrolled in the Frost Bank site, I was actually required to answer 3 questions. 2FA1's risk-based authentication challenge response policy by default requires the user to answer 5 questions that he selects from a pool of 27. And then he's challenged with 3 questions during the risk-based authentication event. In this case, I'm being challenged with 3. If I, for some reason, didn't know these 3, I would have 3 attempts to answer the questions, and then I'd be locked out. I'm going to go ahead and answer my questions. 2FA1 risk-based authentication ran, determined that the answers to the high-risk challenge response questions were correct, and then updated my user profile information in 2FA's risk-based authentication algorithm.